publication event for the 2016 edition of Howl. We'd like to thank the student government and also Paisanos for the pizza over there. And I'll introduce the editors of Howl. We have Rhiannon in the front here, Rhiannon Thornburg. Natalie Archuleta. And I'm Natalina Olivedo. Our first reader this evening will be Gary Cook. This piece is The Smell of Lemon Oil. So Gary is originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. He's a first-year student at UNM-Taos and studies writing in all forms. He's a published songwriter and musician.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank my professor, Laura Lynch, for inspiring me to send this in. The writing has transformed quite a bit in your class. It's been awesome. All right, so this story is a story about my relationship with my mother and also the guitar. It's called The Smell of Lemon Oil. Mornings have always belonged to my mother and I. She is a petite Hispanic woman with hair as white as House Mountain snow. My mother is gentle in nature, yet commands deep respect with her hawk-like eyes, intense gaze, and majestic Spanish accent. She was raised Catholic and always been disciplined with her faith and spirituality. An important part of my mother's ritual every Sunday morning is to attend 8 a.m. Mass. One Sunday morning in Santa Fe, when I was home visiting from Los Angeles, I could hear my mother tiptoeing across her squeaky kitchen floor. She was brewing coffee and trying not to wake me, but the mountain-grown scent inched its way down the hall, and with one stealth-like maneuver, it slipped beneath my bedroom door and attacked my senses. I opened my eyes and raised my arms toward the ceiling in defeat, then climbed out of bed. On my way to the kitchen, I discovered my old guitar tucked away behind my mother's fuzzy purple chair. The scent of lemon oil on the fingerboard captivated my senses and set my mind reeling back in time to my 12th birthday. That was the day we bought my first guitar. Although it was many years ago, I still remember that day in vivid detail. It was Saturday around 11 a.m. Our house was saturated with the aroma of bacon, eggs, and green chili. My mother somehow knew the exact formula for pulling me out of bed. Normally I wouldn't be in such a hurry to abandon such a cozy bunker, but the aroma was just too enticing. Like a determined kung fu master, I kicked the covers and jumped out of bed. I grabbed a long-sleeve shirt and faded blue jeans from the chair and laced up my hiking boots and ran downstairs to partake in the mid-morning feast. And during breakfast, my mother announced she was taking me to the music store to look at guitars. I was already studying guitar in junior high school, but had to borrow a guitar for class, so the thought of having my own guitar had me jumping out of my skin with excitement. After breakfast, we climbed into our maroon station wagon and drove to northern New Mexico music. As we opened the door and walked into the music store, I heard a bell ring. A chubby young salesman with freckles and long red ponytail greeted us with, "Welcome, folks." My mother walked directly towards the salesman behind the counter, and I took a slight detour down an aisle towards some acoustic guitars that were hanging about waist high on the wall. Without stopping my stride, I reached out with a stiff arm and used my fingertips to strum the strings. I made it to guitar number 6 with one consistent motion before being summoned by my mother. "Gary, come here. This gentleman would like to show us the guitar." "Okay, Mom," I replied. The salesman handed me what looked more like a wooden boat than a guitar. It was huge. I grabbed the stern with one hand and the bow with the other, then raised the sound hole to my nose and inhaled. The smell of lemon oil made me smile from ear to ear. With a confused look on my mother's face, she asked, "What are you doing?" I smiled and said, "I'm bonding with the guitar." She tried not to laugh and then gave me a look that implied we'd get back down to business, and being a smart young man, I listened. The salesman sat me down on a wooden bench with the guitar, and I heard my mother telling him that the large boat-like guitar looked a bit awkward against my skinny 12-year-old frame. In agreement, I scanned the room like an eager lover searching for the perfect mate. "What about that one?" I shouted out. "She looks like the perfect fit." My mother gave me a nod of approval, so I grabbed the guitar off the wall and began playing. "He looks quite at home with this one," said the salesman. "Yep, I love it. Can we take her home, Mom? Please, please?" Then came time for negotiation. The chubby, freckle-faced salesman was no match for my mother's intense eyes and commanding disposition. She was like a steadfast poker player in an old Western saloon. Without blinking an eye, she gained the upper hand. He folded and we were awarded the prize, a brand new discount guitar. Our family never had a lot of money. The only gift that rivaled this was an orange twin bike from several years earlier. I thought to myself, she must have saved her money for months to buy this guitar. When we got home, I sat alone with my new companion and strummed for hours. Years later, this same guitar, with all its battle scars, still sits behind the fuzzy purple chair and continues to age like fine wine. I snapped out of my semi-hypnotic state thanks to an abrupt tap on the shoulder and my mother's voice saying, "Gary, what's going on with you?" I quickly responded, "Oh, sorry, Mom, I was daydreaming." "Do you want coffee before I go to church?" she said. "Okay, Mom, I'd love some." I sat down at the kitchen table with the guitar in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other, and I began to explain, "See this guitar? I was just thinking about the day we bought it. Do you remember?" She paused for a moment and said, "My memory is not what it used to be." I smiled and continued, "Mom, that day changed my life in so many ways." "Really?" she said. I said, "Absolutely," I explained. The guitar has accompanied me around the world to exotic places, assisted me in collaboration with great recording artists, and even witnessed me raise 2 sons. I've made a living with the guitar my entire life, and it all started with your wonderful gift. My mother stood up from the table and responded with a humble tone in her voice. "You know, I never stop praying for you. You can always thank God for your talent and for saving you from those dark teenage years." Then with subtle intensity, my mother spoke in Spanish. "Tengo que ir a la iglesia," which in English means, "I need to go to church." I laughed. "Of course, Mom, I don't want you to be late." "Thank you, son. I really need to pray for the rest of the family. My list is getting way too long." She smiled, walked out the door, and drove to church. And while my mother was at church, I sat alone in her kitchen sipping coffee, and the solitude brought me great perspective and reminded me that even the most successful people on earth aren't completely self-made. We all have family, friends, mentors, and/or role models that inspire us along the way. My mother's gift inspired me and set my life of music in motion. With the guitar as a lifelong companion, I've entertained thousands and countless moments of joy and inner vision. And the smell of lemon oil still takes me back to that wonderful day in October that changed my life forever. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. If there are any other authors from this year's publication, you can let me know if you'd like to read as well. Great. Our next author is Daniel Smith. His poem is Astrolabe. Daniel lived in Jordan, where he worked on environmental issues and found inspiration for this piece. He's been a permaculturist in Taos for the past 4 years.
Hi. I wrote this poem after spending some time in Syria and seeing a lot of beauty and a lot of corruption. So that's what I had to wrote this. Astrolabe. It was the afternoon. The air was thick with the heat, the smell of dust. The cigarette smoke formed grayish clouds and spirals. When it left the lips of the shopkeeper, who barely moved except to bring the cigarette to his lips and back to hang over a silver dish in the shape of a conch, crusted over with ash and cigarette butts, covering it like moss or coral. The only thing I purchased was faded, nearly black, the color of brass after years unpolished. Looking little like the things around it, these venerable metal things, of various shape and styling set atop furniture inlaid with mother of pearl, at some point repainted with the fine-tip brush lit up by a group of hanging pilgrims' flasks, their scratched surfaces reflecting the electric lights like flawed prisms onto those large platters wrapped around and around with unreadable Quranic verses stacked up like dinner plates. Nearby the stacks of illuminated manuscripts, their corners curled as newspapers curl after rain, I saw a thing like a pocket watch hanging on a dull brass chain. There were no hours, only faded Arabic. The aleph, the sheen, the others repeated, wrapped around 3 times perhaps, before they met again at the top. I had no notion of what it was or what it was for, until I turned the thing over and saw the 12 symbols arranged in a great wheel, and behind, others like it, astrolabes, among pictures of fishermen, dragging in and turning over their nets and lines. It fits best in the palm. It was made to be held in the palm. It must have looked like a talisman or some other sacred object under the turning of the constellations. The light of the stars would have lit those deep scribed letters for a man to read and turn with the finger, the disc clockwise to tilt the light until the course of the horseman's arrow struck Gemini, and the line in between was the mark by which the eye could discern the way the heavens and their course aligned. It would shine a deep silver on a clear night, and under the moon it would have reflected like mercury, its symbols carved in mercury, and in the morning, after the morning prayers, as that reluctant first light became day, it would have glowed as if reforged and golden and burning, an alchemical gold devised by learned men, an instrument which could chart the constellations and tell by day where to sail, and past sunset where to pray. You cannot read the symbols now. The inscriptions have gone smooth, with salt and fingers and turning. It is like a thing of iron or charcoal, burned down so far it is barely solid and smooth, free of ornamentation, as smooth as rock. On my dresser, the electric light that shines towards my window is caught and reflected 5 shades downward, where it catches on the astrolabe and is absorbed.
Thanks, Daniel. Our next reader is Margery Reading.
Could I read from here? Maybe you could just stand right on the ground over here. Okay. The microphone. Thank you.
Margery has spent much of her career in the classroom, both as a learner and a teacher. Although she has traveled extensively, when she arrived in Taos 20 years ago, she knew she was home.
Thank you. So I'm wondering if people could hear if I didn't use the mic. Could you hear me? No? Okay. So I wanted to thank Robin, who is inspiring as a teacher, and the staff for accepting my work. And this I call my turkey trip. And there's a double meaning for the word trip. Why ever would you want to go to Turkey? It's a Muslim country. Lil looked at my husband and me in amazement across the picnic table. We were enjoying a summer potluck in the backyard of mutual friends and talking about our plans for October. We're going with Overseas Adventure Travel. They have excellent guides. And we're meeting our good friends Mark and Ginny in Istanbul. We told Lil, we can be together. Nobody has to cook or clean or grocery shop. We can just have fun and learn something in the process. Our old friends Mark and Ginny Costendater lived in Virginia Beach, so we rarely got to see them. Ginny and I worked together as school psychologists in the Liberal Arts College of Rochester Institute of Technology. Mark and George were both retired surgeons. All of us enjoyed travel and had gone together to Greece and Crete and the Cyclades. The trip was geared towards physically fit hikers and included time in Istanbul, Izmir, Ephesus, Antalya, Konya, and Cappadocia. For 6 days, we would sail the Mediterranean coast, drop anchor in a different bay each night, and then hike the trails along the shore and up over the hills to ancient ruins. It all sounded magical to me. I was eager to see the underground homes and the exotic rock formations of Cappadocia and watch the whirling dervishes of Rumi Sufi order. It would be a fabulous way to celebrate my 75th birthday, and then 2 things happened. In preparation for our trip, I checked my bank balance online. I would be withdrawing money while I was in Turkey. No access. I tried again, to no avail. I called the bank and waited while the teller investigated. When she came back online, she said in a cheery voice, "I'll connect you with our personnel specialist." Again, silence. And then the specialist said, "Your accounts have been closed because you were declared dead on August 31st. A surge of electricity went through my body. I hurried to the bank with my driver's license and passport in hand to establish my identity. The bank representative explained, "You'll need to go to Santa Fe to the Social Security office and provide them with proof that you're alive." Off I went to Santa Fe, took a number, and waited. When it was my turn, I showed my documents to the smiling woman at the window. Yes, I was who I said I was, and indeed I was living. She would make some calls and get back to me. "We'll be out of the country for 2 weeks. How long will this take?" She was reassuring. As the time for our departure grew closer, I began to panic. Luckily for me, the bank was willing to consider me alive with the State Department. To my relief, they would let me out and back into the country. But insurance was a different matter. My Medicare, Blue Cross, Blue Shield were all canceled. My Social Security check for September was returned to Treasury, and my TIA and CREF retirement benefits were frozen. No insurance, not much money, and legally dead. Then a second thing happened. George and I headed to the car to go to dinner with friends the Friday before our Sunday departure. As I stepped down into the garage wearing loose, backless shoes, my right shoe came off, tripping me, and I fell, my full weight landing on my twisted foot. At dinner, Beverly, a former airline attendant, asked the waiter to bring an ice bag and a child's high chair so I might sit with my foot propped up, packed in ice. Then she gave me excellent advice. Get a wheelchair in every airport. People do it all the time. In the one day we had before our departure, George took me to the hospital emergency room for x-rays. No broken bones, but a bad sprain. Keep off that foot, advised the physician. Right. On a hiking trip for the physically fit? The wheelchair option turned out to have unexpected advantages. We got through security quickly. No standing in line. We boarded early. I got to chat with young people from Central Europe who were working in the USA for the wheelchair agencies. In Istanbul, we were ushered through customs with the VIPs, got our money changed in no time, and had a cab hailed to take us to our hotel. I knew I could get used to this. To say that our guides, Ozgen, Ozcan, and the 10 hikers assembled in the lobby were not pleased to see me hobble in was an understatement. Having a handicapped hiker violated all the rules of the game, I would have work to do. Ozgen and I devised a plan where I would be dropped off at a convenient place and picked up later. The hikers wouldn't wait for me. I would wait for them. In the meantime, I would see what I could and enjoy being in those amazing places. My camera, sketch pad, and book were my companions. Birds Without Bones by Louis de Bernier told the story of Ataturk's rise to power and the plight of the Greeks living in Turkey during that resettlement period. As I read about the mythical village in which the novel is set, I could look up and sketch the ghost town on which the story was based. Instead of rushing through Ephesus, I could ponder the greatness of the culture that built that marvelous library and have a drawing to keep my visual memory alive. The initial grumbling of the group ended and we bonded. 12 liberal adventurers. Jim, a geology major in college days, brought me unusual rocks from his hikes because he knew I loved them. Occasionally someone would fall back and walk along with me. My husband took time outs to rest with me, and from the Gulf Mediterranean sailboat, Mary Ann joined me for a swim, and we did ballet legs, harking back to our days as synchronized swimmers. As the group investigated rock formations in Cappadocia, I dum-de-dummed opera melodies with a complete stranger, a German woman who loved Verdi. Together we hummed the Triumphal March from Aida, and then Wagner, the Pilgrim's Chorus from Tannhauser. In 2 weeks, I'll be 76. We're not planning any big trips this October. 76 isn't a big deal. My right foot is still a bit numb a year later, but I'm legally alive. My death was caused by a civil servant in Philadelphia who entered my social security number by mistake. After more trips to Santa Fe, notarized letters, and too many phone calls, my social security checks resumed. My insurance was reinstated, and by December I was receiving TIAA and CREF payments. George hasn't kept the letters of condolence he received, and no benefits to survivors were paid out. Ginny and Mark keep in touch by email. We'll get together when I go to Boston in October. At first, when I returned from Turkey, I vowed to clean out closets and get rid of stuff so no one else would need to do it. Having been injured and dead for a while can get a girl to thinking. I did make an assault on the garage, but quit halfway through. Clothes and a couple of closets have gone to CAV, and I plan to send linens belonging to my grandmothers to my nephew and nieces. They're still in a box. I wonder what it will take to get me to finish the job. But like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, I'll think about that tomorrow.
Thank you. Our last author, unless there's anyone else who would like to read, is Anne MacNaughton. Her piece is The Place Where Many Willows Grow. Anne's work has been published in numerous journals and anthologies, including Robert Bly's The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart and in Company, and Anthology of New Mexico Poets after 1960.
It's okay, I don't climb up. Thank you. I want to give a little background on this. For those of you who were in Taos, you remember the big hubbub about the proposed changing of the name of Kit Carson Park from Kit Carson Park to Red Willow. And there was a giant stew about that, and I don't think it's actually occurred. So this is about language. It is somewhat, no surprise, Western language centric to assume that places have a noun name that can be used anywhere other than perhaps in that spot. And perhaps the name in that spot is somewhat different from the name away from that spot. So Elsie Clues Parsons translated some, she calls them Tiwa tales, some folk tales from Taos Pueblo a long time ago. And in many of those, the tale begins with the place where the red willows grow, which is taken to be the place of the current village. And the current village is not the original village. There was a house before the houses that we see. There were other houses. So just this was written for people to sort of get a better understanding of intercultural differences, including assuming that every language is noun-centric like English is. The place where many willows grow. We cover each other, generation folding into generation. Those before us passing into eons become ponderosa for centuries, breathe as rocks, then as the lichen that eats them. Sometimes my boys, native students, would leave the school, just suddenly get up from their desks and go walking through a park named for a U.S. Army colonel who marched a bigot's orders into genocide of old enemies, and toward the village whose name is not precisely Red Willow. And now, with relations there, I sometimes visit driving slow, as in the middle of this summer's road I see a magpie's fingers spread straight up, pointing to the sky, black wing and body, blood pasted to asphalt on the Veterans Highway.
Thank everyone for coming. Thank you. Make sure to grab your copy of Howl before you go and have some more pizza if you have any more space in your bellies.